is the cost of living in Northern Virginia versus the rest of Virginia. Who ranks out on top? Let's find out. What's up, everybody? Moki here. Welcome to More Space Real Estate. You've been here before. We're so glad to see you again. If it's your first time, welcome to the channel. We're so glad that you are here. Now, today's video is going to be talking about the cost of living in Virginia and the cost of living in Northern Virginia. So if you know anything about this place, it's a bit of a weird thing, right? Like, what does it all mean? There's a lot, you could Google it, and there's a lot of people who are much smarter than I am that can tell you what it all means. But for all intents and purposes, the cost of living in Northern Virginia is significantly different from the cost of living in the rest of Virginia. And today I'm just going to talk about some of the main characteristics of living in Northern Virginia and the rest of Virginia in terms of cost of living and how they compare. So looking at big picture, the state of Virginia is more expensive to live in than the national average. So many different calculators use the score of 100 to describe the baseline for a place for affordability in terms of cost of living. And the state of Virginia ranks at a 103.7, 104, 105, just a tad bit above the national average. Now that's the overall state. But when you start looking at places in Northern Virginia like Alexandria, Fairfax County, Loudoun County, these places are significantly higher. So a place like Fairfax County ranks somewhere on 126 out of 100. A place like Ashburn or Brambleton is somewhere close to 130 and 140 over 100, which is to say that Northern Virginia on average is at least 20 to 30 times more expensive than the national average when it comes to overall cost of living. And one of the biggest elements in cost of living is housing. At this point, everybody is talking about real estate. Everybody's been talking about it. You're watching this channel, so you are too. And so we have to look at the real estate prices in Virginia that vary from Northern Virginia and the rest of Virginia. So for example, let's compare a place like Richmond to Sterling, Virginia. In Richmond, the cost of living is just 1% higher than the national average. And real estate prices are just 4% higher than the national average. Whereas if you go to Sterling, Virginia, you're looking at a cost of living that's 22% higher than the national average and real estate prices that are 30% higher than the national average. And so the question then will become, how much money would you need to earn in order to live in one of these places comfortably? And one of the ways you can do that is by asking yourself, what kind of home do you want? And in the home that you want, how much does it cost in each city? And then you multiply that monthly cost of your mortgage with by 40. You can just multiply by 40 and that'll give you the gross income that you would need for a year. And so if you do that, you will see that to get a 3-bedroom house in Richmond is not as expensive as getting a 3-bedroom house in Sterling. And so that's how you determine how much money does it take. Now this is being financially responsible, and you got to talk to your financial person, whether it's an advisor or accountant, to determine, how does your money line up and how does it go. But this is the deal. Housing costs are drastically different from Northern Virginia and the rest of Virginia by a wide margin. Outside of your housing costs, you've got your utility costs with your gas, electric, cable, all different things. Now the cost will vary depending on the seasons, but overall it's fair to budget around $300 to $400 a month for your utilities. Now, it's not to say that you're going to use all this money up. And for example, it may vary also if you're living in a condo association that has a lot of the utilities included in your condo fee. And then in that sense, your utilities are somewhat wrapped up in your housing costs rather than their own fee. But that's up to you to determine based on where you're at. But as a standalone, you're looking at around $300 to $400. Just put that away, put that aside, and that can at least give you a comfortable average for what you would need. The next thing we got to talk about is everybody's favorite, taxes. Now, Virginia's income tax is progressive, which means that you pay taxes based on your income. So basically, everybody making more than $17,000 a year is going to be taxed at around 5% income tax. Now, the state also has a 5.5% sales tax, and our property taxes are actually lower than the national average at around 80 cents for every $100. The caveat to that, though, is that in places like Alexandria, Fairfax County, Loudoun County, so on and so forth, the property values are so high that the taxes end up kind of rounding out at around where the national marks would be. But when it comes to the property taxes, that varies based on where you are in Virginia and what county you live in. So that's something that will just have to be determined by the house that you decide to live in. The next thing when we talk about cost is gas prices. This year has just, it's become a problem. So if you're looking at Northern Virginia gas prices, they're right about between $3.70 to over $4 to about $4.30, $4.40, $4.50. The closer you get into DC, the more you're gonna have to pay. And the further you get away from DC, the less expensive it is. The cost of, so it's definitely a lot more expensive here. It has gotten a little bit better, but it's still pretty bad. So a lot of ways to get around that is to look into the public transportation accommodations. And the cool thing is that is improving throughout the Northern Virginia region. So public transport is a way that you can mitigate some of these costs, but the trade-off is that you'll have perhaps a longer commute than you would have elsewhere. The next item we're looking at when it comes to cost of living is the cost of groceries and goods and services. So when we're looking at goods and services and groceries, starting with Richmond, that is around 93 out of 100. So that is actually a little bit lower than the national average. But coming back up to Sterling, Ashburn, Fairfax County, the cost of groceries and goods and services is about 115 to 120 over 100. So that is 15% higher than the national average compared to a place like Richmond that's almost 7% lower than the national average. And one of the main things that we'll have to consider as well when we're thinking about the costs of anything really is inflation and how that is affecting everybody. At this point, it's not even, if they're talking about it on Good Morning America, then it's something that's affecting everybody at this point. So inflation is hovering around 5 and 6%. So when you're thinking about all the costs that you would need for goods and services and your groceries specifically, then you want to give yourself a buffer of about 5 to 6% of whatever it is that you're trying to buy, that it'll probably be more expensive coming on now and moving into the rest of the year. So with all that said, one question comes up, like how much money then do you need to make to live here comfortably? And so I alluded to it a little bit earlier when I was talking about housing expenses. So if you estimate that your housing costs are going to be 30% of your net income, then if you have, let's say, a monthly mortgage or a monthly rent of $2,500 and you multiply that by 40, then you're looking at needing $100,000 after taxes to live comfortably, because your housing expense, the largest expense, is well within the 30% range. Now, these are the kind of numbers you would anticipate in a place like Northern Virginia or outside of Virginia, where you have bigger properties if you were going to be buying a bigger home. But on average, if you're in the rest of Virginia and you have, let's say, a housing expense that's $1,500 a month, if you multiply that by 40, then you only need around $60,000 to live comfortably, compared to needing $100,000 after taxes to live comfortably. So that's why this video is called Northern Virginia and the Rest of Virginia, is that what you need to live a comfortable life, which is really just having your housing expenses under control, is one of the big keys to having a comfortable life. And you need significantly less to have a comfortable life outside of Northern Virginia than you do in Northern Virginia. But then a question arises, is the cost of living equal to the quality of life that you want, that you need? And so sometimes that equation is not so straightforward. And sometimes a place like Sterling, Virginia or Richmond, Virginia may have exactly what you need, but it's up to you to determine what those needs are. So that's just the tip of the iceberg for what the cost of living is in Northern Virginia versus the rest of Virginia. But as you know, even from where you live, there's only so much that you can know about a place just from looking online, by watching a video, or by just reading stats and figures. But there's so much more. And if you want to talk more about either the cost of living or what it takes to relocate from where you are to Northern Virginia, or just move from one place in Northern Virginia to the next, then hit me up below. You got my contact details in the first pinned comment and also in the description. And like my mentor says, and I'll say to you, is that if you don't get what you want, it doesn't matter how much or how little you pay for it. And that's the same thing with housing and buying a home in Virginia. Is if you don't get what you want, then it doesn't matter what you pay. But if you know what you want, then you know how to, then we can work a plan to figure out how to pay the cost to get you what you want. And that's what I'm here to help you do, to come up with a plan so that you can get what you want and not have to spend more money than you need to. So hit me up, people. I got your back. Moki Musal, thanks for watching. More Space Real Estate here for you every day, all day. Take care.